Good evening, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 265. To give people time to join the stream, etc., I'll start us off with a tune as I always do.
Take up the white man's burden, send forth the best ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' need. To wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new gods sullen peoples have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride. By open speech and simple, 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace. Fill full the mouth of famine and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, watch love and heed and folly bring all your hopes to naught. Take up the white man's burden, no tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, a loved Egyptian night? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly profit laurel, the easy ungrudged praise. Come down to search your manhood through all of thankless years. No age with give or wisdom, the judgment of your peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of thankless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. If you like good music, go and check out Chris Gard's channel on YouTube. And you can also follow him on X, on Twitter, where we are also live at the moment. I've only got two guests so far this evening, so we'll see if anyone else turns up. Hopefully they will. I can't control who comes on and who doesn't. I know Mercian, who's in the chat, is working this evening, but hopefully we'll get one or two others. So good evening, Mitch, and good evening, AI. How are you going?
Same old.
Okay.
I'm all good. Hello, everybody.
Yep. Hello, AI. Good to have you back because you couldn't make last week, I think.
Yeah.
I hope, and maybe the chat will tell me, I hope I've temporarily solved the interference I was getting on my microphone. I
Oh,
hope I
yes,
have.
it's non-existent. I can't hear
Right.
anything.
And the
It
reason
sounds
I've
better.
solved it, yeah, I was on Aubrey's stream yesterday when she did a quiz stream, which was
I
fun. And
I watched that. I started watching that this
well,
afternoon.
anyway, I discovered that if I put my microphone cable around my neck, the interference stops. God alone knows why. Perhaps I'm earthing it or something. I've got no fucking idea. But anyway, there we go. Did, Mitch, did you have a first subject for this evening?
Suppose we'll talk about everyone's talking about the boomer question on X at the moment.
Yep. With the triple lock on pensions and all the rest of it. Yep.
Yeah, so the whole thing started where Reform basically said they're just gonna have they're gonna carry on with triple lock, which Tories saddled us with. The Labour Party continuing it. Same with the Lib Dems. I think the Green Party have also said they're gonna favour the triple lock. And the problem with it is financially we can't afford it, but because boomers cast half of all votes in elections, no one's going to cancel it because otherwise the boomers will just stop voting for you, and you're much likely to lose an election without the boomers. So,
And if you watch Reform UK party rallies and meetings and what have you on YouTube or on X, they're absolutely jam packed full of boomers. It's boomers who are supporting Farage and Reform UK. So far as I can see, the younger people are mostly going for Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain, which I think they are correct in doing. But you guys can talk about this.
Yeah. Reform. The young people that I see in Reform tend to be like that Lysick, leechy Lysick, as I like to call him. He's a bit of a leech fella who is totally astroturfed, and there's a few others. There's like notable ones, young Tory boy types. We even know one. We even know a couple, but there's one notable one who sort of had a bit more publicity in relatively recently. So, but they're just party men. But yeah, largely it is boomers. But the thing is, it's all, as we've already said, probably endlessly on this show. At the end of the day, they're just a placeholder party for the establishment. They're not going to. They don't want to change anything. The only thing they probably will, is obviously, even down to their aesthetic of just sort of like behaving like a Butland sort of rally. I mean that is the draw, and Reform, like the rest of the parties, they only think in like 5 years. They think in election cycles of anything that they want to like put forward. You need and in the here and now. It's a totally selfish way of thinking, and it's one of the reasons why I think reform. I don't see reform bouncing back. I mean, I'm seeing even polling out of Wales now, where traditionally reform beforehand were having very like strong. You're going to have a big majority of Welsh seats. Now it seems that Plaid Cymru are sort of coming through now, and so on all fronts, it looks like reform is going backwards, and it's because of the way they're presenting themselves on all issues. They're just they're fumbling it. It's actually typical Farage fashion. He did this UKIP. He did this with the Brexit Party. He just fumbles.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I don't disagree with anything you said there, AI. I put up your graphic there, Mitch. I don't know if you want to explain it to people.
yeah, so basically, the left bubble is what the average boomer paid into the system for their pension, like the state pension, and the bigger bubble is what they're getting through the triple lock. So you understand how warped it is that where boomers will say, "Oh well, we need the triple lock to make sure we have a good pension." And it's like, well, the thing is, they're getting far more out of the system than they're paid into it, and also it's worth noting when the World War II generations, when they were having their pension, they were living like they were basically in poverty in the 70s and the 80s when the boomers were like my age. So it's a matter of the boomers were happy for their parents and grandparents to live in poverty in their retirement, but they demand that nowadays the Zoomers and millennials basically impoverish themselves to pay for a triple locked pension. Which so the thing about the triple lock is the whole point is you protect the state pension from like inflation, but the guy paying into it, guys like such as my generation, our wages aren't protected from inflation, and
And you won't, you guys won't get a pension, I don't think, not a state pension. It'll, as Adam is saying in the chat here, and Adam and I sent you a link, by the way, mate. Yeah, I very much doubt if the likes of AI or Mitch will get a state pension when they retire.
I don't think my mother will get it. She's in the mid, and she's 57. I don't think she's going to get it. Let alone
Yeah, well, I'm 61, and I would be able to get it if I'm still alive when I'm 67, I think. But whether I'm still going to be alive when I'm 67 is dubious. All right, Adam's sick, so he's not coming on. Aubrey's at the hairdresser's, so she's not coming on. Mercian is working, so he's not coming on. So okay, all right. Get well soon, Armand. But yeah, it's. I don't know. I think if people should pay in for their own pension schemes, maybe while they're working, I think that's
yeah.
probably the best idea.
Yeah, the problem you've got is like you've got people in their 50s, but most people in their 50s haven't actually got a private pension. So you've just got like the people in their 50s, they're going to go into their 60s, and they don't have they're going to have to rely entirely upon the state pension, and it's kind of it's the worst. Like, and that's the thing. Like the welfare state we've got, but basically, yeah, I've come to the conclusion: if you're going to have a welfare state, you can't have democracy with it, because otherwise people will just vote for more free stuff. Basically, like that's where we're at. Where the boomers say, "Well, we've paid into the system," and indeed they have. But the problem is they're voting for more Gibbs. Like you saw in the last election, where we saw the Tories going, "We're going to conscript all your woke grandkids to die in Ukraine, and we're going to do a quadruple lock for your pensions." I mean, you've got other aspects of a social welfare state, like the NHS, especially, which becomes just a massive financial black hole, and the government just has to carry on taxing more and more, and it's a position where when the boomers were my age, the average retiree, like so, for every pensioner there was in let's say 1980, there were 20 working age adults, whereas nowadays it's completely the other way. It's like for each pensioner there is nowadays, you get 4 working age people. Never mind the immigrants we also have to pay for. So it's the worst of all worlds. What we've got.
I mean, at the end of the day, and this is something that people, restore or even not, and restore will have to like confront this if they want to be sensible, or somebody will have to just say, listen, we're not going to forfeit like 2,000, like, not forget even 2,000, thousands of years of European identity and history in the British Isles. We're not going to chuck it away just so one generation can have all this luxury. That needs to be said. That all this luxury stuff. I mean, yeah, it's all nice and everything, but at the same time, you're not going to have a society left. And once it's gone, it's gone. If it's just going to, I mean, I've been watching over the last week. I saw like this recommended videos. It's someone called DJE Media, um, and he goes around just filming, like Soho, parts of London, Woolwich, Greenwich, all different parts, and it is grim. I'm not even joking. If I was to describe it, some people would probably think that I'm being hyperbolic, but the state of our nation's capital and most towns and cities in this country is not even just unacceptable, it's hellscape. Anybody now,
Yeah, AI,
yeah,
you're so correct. I mean, I know Callum's done a little bit of stuff on this. The guy who used to work for the Lotus Eaters. Also, I recommend Bald and Bankrupt, the UK traveling video.
yeah,
It's really grim in places. It really is.
and,
It looks like a
yeah,
third world shithole.
yeah, and I mean, you think about where this country. I mean, think about where this country was 100 years ago, or just over 100 years ago, and think about it now. And bearing in mind, even though 100 years ago you had some writers saying that, oh yeah, Britain's on its last legs. I mean, God, one can imagine on current trajectory what's like the Britain's going to be in 100 years' time. Um, I mean, it's not even worth thinking about it at the moment. But but this is where it comes down to it is that no generation has the right to throw away this country and to throw away the not even just the country but the nation and its people on a deeper level, because this is what all of this it comes down to. It is tied to immigration, it is tied to mass, and if we're being absolutely honest, it's every Tory nitwit and um reform Tory boy out there will do their little like say, oh, high skilled immigration. It's never high skilled immigration. Even if it was, it doesn't make a difference. It's always low skilled
Well,
slave labor class that enter the labor pool.
It's fucking people delivering meals and shit like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like in the Tamils in the warehouse or something like that. It's totally low skilled, and it has. I mean, number one, they don't even pay enough to to half of them don't even pay enough to pay into to have taxes. I mean, they'll pay national insurance, but they won't even be paying the first threshold of tax anyway.
yeah. No, another thing I'd say is like when we say like high skilled immigration, okay, you're getting guys like Priti Patel, who when they get into power, they just usher us all in low skilled, crappy migrants anyway. So it's just a fallacy anyway when we say high skilled immigrants because they're just
I'd say one of the things that makes it worse, guys, is that of course you've got people living longer these days, right? So whereas in the 1960s and 1970s, like most guys lived into their early mid 70s. I think it's higher than that now. And women, of course, have always lived longer than blokes. And most women have this liberal streak within them. But then on top of that, of course, we've had decades and decades now of falling birth rates. So that obviously younger people like you, Mitch, and UAI have far less influence than you should have because there's less of you than there should be,
Yeah. And the current thing is, and Evelyn Sunglasses says in the chat, 100 years deindustrialization. This country, if you were to categorize how this country operates globally and domestically, globally, it's all financial services, a service-based economy. But what makes it worse is this boom and bust economy where it does rely entirely on people coming in, people coming out, but people coming in, and you end up having like this. Britain sort of like becomes this service station of the service station society where you have these transient populations flowing in, out, and everywhere. And you could say that's like the most peak of globalism, but it isn't. It isn't realistic anymore. it isn't realistic anymore.
I
And
would
even
also, sorry, AI, just while I think of it, I would also point out that Evola's sunglasses is correct, of course, about the deindustrialization, but it's really only been the last 50 years that have seen most of that.
Yeah.
There was still plenty of British industry around in the late 1960s and even in the early 1970s.
But also, if we look at, and I've said this before, is you look at the, it's sort of like this sort of double assault, because the people who were pushing for the original waves of mass immigration were the owner of the textile mills, and in Northern England, and the people, and so I don't want to go like all commie here, but I'm just going to sound it. It is the capitalist class of the day, and even today, because they do push, for these schemes where they get workers from Africa and Asia and what have you. It is the capitalist, the capitalist working, the capitalist class who are using the global labor pool to profit off this, and also that
And
cause
to
this
make it
extreme harm to this
worse,
country.
AI, and to make that worse, most of these people who are pushing for that these days are great big massive international corporations. They're not even British companies, really.
No, they're massive corporations, and they give money to. I mean, you look at the Tory Party; they have a lot of money from the donations from the construction sector. You also then have Lib Dems and Labour, and even Reform. Even Donald Trump in America. If it's actually, I think it was Stephen Carlson who did like a bit on that. He actually said that if you look at donations, one of the big lobby, well, apart from the APAC lobby, one of the other big lobbies was the farmers, and particularly the farmers in the south. They relied on effectively migrants with very like dodgy visas to no visas, work permits, whatever they call it. And when it came down to the ICE detention, and also removing illegal immigrants, the farms in the United States, particularly in the South, were exempt, and that's because of the lobbyist thing. So even when it comes down to it, part like Trump, who is seen as like this great sort of figure, of removing immigrants who are a detriment and a drain on American society. There is even an exception for that. I mean, there are other exceptions as well that go on, but even in that case, and you see it here as well in the UK.
I mean, with Trump, you just got to remember, even Joe Biden deported more.
Yeah,
So
under current trajectory, I mean, ideally, if Trump wanted to have like an impact, he would have to deport 10, 20 million.
yeah,
It's a huge undertaking. Something which I doubt that's going to happen. And
nah. Yeah, there's some people talking about how they can see, they won't call it an amnesty, but it will be an amnesty that Trump will do.
Well, I mean, the Tories did it with Boris Wave. Sorry, not Boris. Sorry, not what. Sorry, no. If you remember when we had the official exit from the European Union, you had this mass amnesty for European nationals living in Britain, a lot of which, and people probably don't realise, a lot of the Roma gypsies, if you see a lot of Roma gypsies, particularly in London and cities, begging and all that sort of stuff, or in your local town, they got a lot. They were part of that exemption, that European exemption. So that was like the regime, British regime's passing sort of shot as a as like a, I guess, like a nephew to people who voted Brexit or something. But trouble is, when it comes to European immigration, that seems such a far thing now, given what's happened in the country. Yeah.
Imagine having a problem with Polish people in this day and age.
Someone was talking in the chat about universities are very progressive these
Yeah.
days. That is absolutely true, but it's also true that in many universities, including the best universities in Britain, most of the students are not even British.
No, I said, have you seen like some of these videos of like the like finishing ceremonies and stuff? And there's not a soul like white face in the crowd.
I saw a clip of like some like gangster like some sort of like thing in a university lecture hall, and it was like all black Afro Caribbean
right.
people, and someone said this is Cardiff, and I
Yeah,
thought,
I saw that one.
and I originally I said, oh, that must be like Cardiff, like
America somewhere.
like a town called Cardiff in America or somewhere,
Yeah.
and they'd be like, it's some black areas. Like, no, that's, and I'm just thinking like, I when I went to Cardiff like 15 years ago, with some mates, you know, it would have been difficult to find a black person.
I know.
You know, it would have maybe like in the touristy sort of bit, you'd have someone from overseas or something. It would have been hard pressed to find a black person.
Do you remember the Welsh government? They wanted to do like a Welsh Black History Museum. It turns out there was none. They couldn't find anyone.
Well, I mean, they've got that Axa Rubicabana fella. He could probably be
now they do.
That's one person they can put in there. The Welsh choir boy, but
I noticed that Ivola's Sunglasses was saying he lives in a seaside town in near Essex. My father, when he moved away from London, as nearly all traditional British Londoners have done, he moved down to Bognor Regis in West Sussex. And when he first moved down there, it was still a holiday town. You'd get families coming there in the summer and what have you. There's a huge Butlins there, which I wouldn't touch with a 20-foot steel tip barge for a while.
That's a reform headquarters now, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably is actually, Tharian. But yeah, there were loads of people who used to go down there independently. There were caravan sites. There were hotels who catered for people and what have you. But it's dead now. It's just a dead town. And also, there's loads of immigrants there now, which there certainly weren't when my dad first moved there.
Tell you what, I've also like you see some of these videos from these Essex beaches, like they're just close to London, and you can tell the ghettos have come out for a holiday. It's just not what it used to be, the seaside.
No, it's definitely not. I mean, I remember going down to see my father with my son when my son was very small. He was like 4 or 5 or something. And he used to like going to Granddad's because he liked my dad's. My dad had a big dog called Ben. And Teddy loved Ben. He thought he was the best thing, even though we had 2 dogs ourselves. It was still quite fun then, I guess. You could still go and buy fish and chips and eat it on the promenade and this sort of stuff, but I wouldn't be going there now. I really wouldn't.
Great Yarmouth, though. We should support Great Yarmouth.
Yeah, 100%. And I noticed, by the way, that Rupert Lowe always gives his salary as an MP away every month to a charity. And the latest one he's supported is restoring a church in Great Yarmouth. So good on Rupert Lowe.
Yeah, good on him.
Atterman's comment there.
Yeah. Look, my dad took me to Canterbury when I was a little kid. I mean, long before Atterman's talking about here. And my dad took me there to take me around Canterbury Cathedral, of course, because it was a big historical icon. I mean, in the same way as he took me to HMS Victory and the Tower of London and what have you. And I still remember seeing the Black Prince's tomb and his armor and all that stuff. But it was a lovely little, basically country town then.
Yeah,
not what Atterman tells me it's like today. You know,
the first time I saw a bad person was when I was probably about 7, and this was in Barnstable, at the Marks and Spencers in Barnstable. This is no joke. This is no joke. And he was shoplifting. He was basically he was shoplifting, and I reported him to the staff there. I was with and I said to my parents, I said, "Oh, he's been putting stuff in there." And then we went and told and I was like 7 or something at the time. I was quite young.
And then you were
And
referred to Prevent, and they made sure you didn't do that again.
I didn't see him. I actually lied. The funny thing is, I actually lied. I just knew that he was up to literally like my I was in that moment. I was possessed by the ghost of.
Even
Don't dox yourself, AI.
Yeah, no.
Even at 7, you had the instincts. You knew.
Yeah, I had the instincts. I was noticing. I was just sort of noticing.
That doesn't belong there. What's he doing?
Yeah, what? I mean, it was quite obvious though, and it was a bit awkward because he was like, he was like, he was like a bit older. He was more like a teenager, like 14 or something,
Mm-hmm.
and he was saying, "Oh, you racist," sort of thing, and to the to the manager and everything. The police came and everything, but yeah, I was that was my first like interaction, and after that, I mean. At that age, I just assumed all black people were criminals, to be honest. But
some things never change, right?
Mitch, this was your topic. So, what would you like to add to what you've been talking about?
For me, what decided it?
Is it playing?
For me, what decided it was, number one, there are a lot of older pensioners who got their pensions before 2016 who are really pretty disadvantaged by the current system. Secondly, that the people to whom pensions are being paid, in vast majority, certainly compared to a younger generation today, are those that have actually worked and paid into the system. And we are very much the party of alarm clock Britain, those that work, and therefore should reap rewards later in life. But the third and most decisive reason is that within the next 2 weeks, we are going to announce the biggest cuts to the benefits bill ever seen in the history of this country. So when questions get asked in a minute, how can you afford it? Well, we can afford it many, many times over, given what we're going to announce within the next fortnight.
It's so depressing, isn't it?
We've just witnessed in the last week Americans and one Canadian, as the loyalist in chat pointed out, one Canadian go to space, go towards to the orbit of the moon, to the near surface of the moon. That should be us. We're talking. I mean, what is it? We're talking about like money, like to give to these like to people who, quite frankly, don't deserve it.
No.
I mean, and what do people do with the money? They go and they go out and get themselves absolutely plastered every like Friday, Saturday night. They waste it on cheap holidays. They waste it on useless shit. I mean, what are we doing here? I want to see great things happen. I want this country to have a moon, a space program. I want this country to have, something which instills it with pride and a vision for the future.
I wouldn't mind us having a navy. That'd be quite useful too.
Yeah, that would help a functioning navy. But do you see what I mean? I want this country not to be just like. I mean, the managed decline is a state of mind. There's nothing. It's not like the seasons. I mean, all these fuckers. Sorry, I shouldn't swear. I'm just going to try to stop swearing. But all these people, whether they be Tory or whatever, have been saying this is inevitable fact. It's like the coming of seasons or everything. And there are even some people on the right, who was about Spengler and everything. And yes, the height of the empire's gone and everything, but that doesn't mean we still can't be a great nation and do great things. Just because we don't have control over vast territory doesn't mean our capital should be looking like it is tonight. And it doesn't mean that our streets should be total war zones, and that we should be totally, quite frankly, pussy whipped into believing the most, vile things about our own country. We shouldn't. None of that should be true.
Women and babies having to be locked in the shops in London because of rioting blacks, basically.
Yeah, there's no precedent in any society, even when I'm happy to say, all that stuff 100 years ago of the empire and all, it's all gone. Yeah, it's all gone. It's gone. It's finished. But it doesn't mean the marriage decline means that we just allow a society to collapse. All these parties, Farage, Labour, Tories, Lib Dems, all of them, all these well, I won't say the word, but all these, parties of managed decline, they're the reasons why this has happened. You can blame Sadiq Khan's London. Yeah, he's a symptom of the problem, but it's people like Farage. The reason why we have a Sadiq Khan as mayor of London is because of the political ideology that Farage spouts of free market, and his economic model means that not just London, but other towns and cities will have Sadiq Khans, and that we will have this endless importation of foreign people who are of very extreme tribal mentality, who will carve out a piece of this country. That is Farage. That is what Farage will bring in. And quite frankly,
Farage is a totally unreformed Thatcherite, basically. That's all he is.
Yeah, and I am actually scared if Farage does win, because I think he will do a Boris wave, but even on a larger scale.
Yeah, definitely. I've said before, I think I can imagine him saying, because of this state of the economy that Labour's left us, we've got to bring in some more elite talent from overseas to fix it. And then
more Indians, basically, is what they mean by that, of course.
And
probably Chinese as well, but yeah.
And let's look at the history of it. In the oh, sorry, is my mic muted at all? No, it's not muted. No, sorry. If you look back in the history of it, in the late Victorian period, we invited, what was it? Particularly Jews from Eastern Europe who were involved in radical socialist.
We didn't invite them. We did not invite them. We accepted them, but we did not invite them, I've got to say.
Our state, well, be that as it may, the British state, accepted them in. We then accepted others, then from the former colonies of the empire. Bearing in mind, parts of, people, particularly people from former colonies who were very, very hostile to Britain, particularly like in Pakistan and everything. There is a problem in this country where, and it's even like, when you talk about people inviting Hong Kongers and stuff and China, number one, you have the old adage of, well, if you invite people who are enemies of you when you were of Britain from the imperial age, that will create problem, particularly Deobandis. If you look at the Pakistani, most of them follow the creed of Deobandism, which is very anti-British, anti-European, and quite nationalistic in sense. A lot of that also comes from the links to grooming gangs and everything, and if you see that, you'll see that crossover. But a lot also comes down to, and you look at like London today again, when you have like the Iranian diaspora or any other diaspora group, are we okay with accepting people who are traitors to their own countries living here? Because if they're happy to betray their own country, I mean, how the hell do you think they're going to serve this country. You know.
Yeah. I mean, especially like the Iranians recently, they seem to shut up a bit. But when they were sort of cheering on their own people getting bombed, that's not. I don't think these are very good people.
Or take the Afghanis. You know what? Take the Afghanis. The people who, I mean, majority of them didn't serve. But let's look at the people who did help the Western powers.
Yeah, just
okay. Well,
mercenaries.
they just mercenaries. They betrayed their own people, and then it turns out a lot of them are pretty scummy, do scummy things like commit rape and assault, violent assault.
Yeah, these people were the Taliban thought these people were scumbags. That's that's how bad this lot are. Like it's like the Bakabazu stuff, the boy rape. Taliban banned that, and like it's sort of, you know, and it's sort of people I seen like say, oh, the Taliban did this. No, this was these Afghan allies of ours, the good Afghans that were doing all that.
Yeah, it's.
But with the the boomer stuff, the real thing I was thinking with the boomers is, you know, I know it's not all boomers, obviously, on that, but how many of them are actually willing to give up their pensions? Even like the based ones, you know, who say, "Oh yeah, I don't want the immigrants." Well, you know, are you actually going to give up that pension?
Well, as reform people have said, you know, when they've been pressed on such issues, they just turn around and say, "Well, they won't be alive." You know, they won't be alive halfway through the century, so or latter part of the century to see, you know, what will happen to the country. So they don't really care.
Yeah.
And they quite and Farage has said that. I think David Ball has said that. Richard Tice has said that on numerous occasions. I mean, they don't care what happens to this country in 100 years.
And David Bull, of course, certainly doesn't have any children. So,
and it's like you see all these reform parties supporting boomers who they just go out of the stereotypical boom argument of all the young generation all just feckless and lazy.
Yeah,
I'm sort of thinking, right? So you take the millennials, right? Who were their parents? I was like the boomers. So if the millennials turn out as shitty as these people make out, what does that say for boomers who parented them? It's, you know, like the thing is, like the boomers, like, because it's always been a civilizational thing that, you know, the elderly, they're meant to be the ones who guide the youth, like to, you know, not do stupid crap or whatever, and, you know, help them. The boomers don't do that for my generation, nor the millennials. They just sometimes going, oh well, we want you to pay more and more taxes so we can get to go on cruises down the Danube or something. That's just what they want to do. It's just there's no guidance. There's nothing we get from these people. I mean, they're demanding we impoverish the country to pay for their pensions. It's just, you know, it's like, for example, they'll say, yeah, I think I echoing a bit, or something like that. I wasn't. Yeah, I must admit, for example, if I'll say, oh, well, the state pension is on like 12.5 grand, and it's like, well, the problem is there's like 10 million boomers who are still receiving a state pension. And you know, and it's like we've got 40 million working age people, but a lot of them can't get a job because, well, the economy is on its arse.
Yeah.
So it's just the worst of all worlds. I mean, the boomers are still demanding their boomer gold.
Yeah.
And also, how much of that 40 million working age population is actually British?
Yeah. But like the other thing you always hear them say is, "Well, I paid for this pension." No, you didn't. You paid for your parents' pension, right? And then you didn't have any kids to pay for your own pension in this stupid pyramid scheme.
Well, even then, like the pensions you had back in the 70s and 80s, like the pensioners back then were still living in poverty, despite so the boomers didn't give a damn about their own parents living in poverty in their retirement, but they demand that our generations, literally just make ourselves skint to pay for their retirement. even though, as I said, they didn't proper plan for it, because if they would have had more children, but they didn't. They just, and they say like, oh well, the government made us this promise. I'm like, okay, the government made you a promise. I was like, okay, so the system we've got is unsustainable. What do you think happens if you just get a position where the Zoomers and millennials, they just realize how much of a ratchet the whole damn thing is, and we just go, you know what, screw it. Like, because I'm black-pilled about this question, where I don't think you're going to solve it through democracy, because you can't have a welfare state alongside democracy. It's just, otherwise you just get this position where the boomers cast half the votes, and every party has to count out to the boomers, because it's only like a quarter of my generation vote. It's
I mean, I know this may be.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry.
AI, you carry on, mate. No, you carry on.
I was just gonna say this may be like a bit of a poor comparison, but you know how we're like particularly in like around the third, fourth century or third century, sort of leading up to the crisis of the third century in Rome, you had like this, you know, each emperor would have to like bribe the Praetorian, you know, and the legions, particularly the Praetorians, because the Praetorians became like this whole class within the Roman Empire who would just basically install an emperor. I mean, really, the Praetorians were really controlling the empire, but they would install emperors, hold sway over the Senate, and you know, on numerous occasions they would sort of kill one emperor, install another one, then kill the next one, and you had that one. Which emperor was it? Who?
To be fair, AI, you're quite right in terms of bribing the military and all the rest of it, but the Praetorians themselves were actually gone by that time. I think it was Severus who got rid of the Praetorians. I think it was Severus, but they were certainly gone by the 4th century.
Yeah, they were gone by that.
But he brought in German mercenaries instead, which was probably worse, actually. So,
well, but that was the point. Was you had the Praetorians became this destabilizing fact, where you had like on one occasion, you know, I think it was there was an emperor who was there for like a couple months, you know, and it's like in that scenario, the reason why Severus did what he did, and yeah, it wasn't looking at it like with hindsight now, yeah, it wasn't sensible, because then you had it gave the Germanic tribes and the Gothic tribes chance to, you know, understand Roman society, and then, you know, that was later used against them, and we all know what happened there. But at the time, you can't have like a certain selection group of people holding your whole society hostage for financial gain, and
just themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and I'm 61 years old. Okay, my birthday was a week ago or so, and I've got to say, I can see both sides of the argument. I see exactly why younger people, like the other three people on the panel here, are resentful of the boomer generation. I can absolutely see why. And a lot of boomers deserve that contempt. They do. Not all of them. I mean, I've got to say, like, none of my friends, some of whom are actually boomers, I'm not quite, but I almost am. None of my friends were supporting mass third-world immigration into Britain. None of my friends were particularly keen on the idea of like spending the vast majority of the gross national product on the NHS. You know, this is not something that people I know support, but many boomers did. I would also say, and I was saying this on the Discord yesterday, I think this is a largely middle class issue, because a lot of actually wealthy people do find ways to pass down wealth to their family. They always have. And a lot of the working class guys in Britain, particularly after the deindustrialization that Britain has had for the last 50 or 60 years, a lot of the working class people have got fuck all to pass down to their children anyway, to be fair.
I mean, but you still have though. You still have like your miners parades in the old mining communities. But one thing that's quite fun, I saw a documentary of it a few years ago, and there was this whole thing, and it was only a couple years. It was a couple years ago, I think, and it was still very much like, you know, screw Thatcher, all that sort of stuff. And it's
Yeah.
like I was sitting there and thinking, well, yes, but then at the same time, uh, like that particular mine, I believe, closed down. I think it was actually under Blair. I think it was actually
Yeah.
under Blair, and a lot of the social policies they complained about, you know, was under Major and everything. But I understand what their sentiment is, but at the same time, it's like these people have become so blinded with hate because that's what they were told. You know, that they're sort of wrapped up in the whole you know, party political hate, like we must hate Thatcher because she's evil. And you got the other side saying we love Thatcher because she's, you know, she crushed the, you know, the treacherous unions and all that sort of stuff. And I understand that sort of mindset because that is like your red meat, you know, your red meat for both sides. But what they've allowed is they've allowed their sort of hate and everything for this one figure to, yeah, to basically maximize that. They ignored everything else around them, and you know, they're sort of like mentally they're still in like they're like this Thatcher 1980s, you know, mode.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
most of them weren't even alive then. You see, most of them were alive. They're sort of parroting their parents or grandparents' talking points, but they're still mentally fighting. But then you got like, you know, this sort of pride thing here, or the local union member like welcoming in foreign nationals from, you know, India or Africa or something like that. Um, and then when it comes to it, you know, you have your Green Party representative there or Labour Party representative, and then and then when someone asked, I think it was the Labour one, when somebody asked Labour one, what about like reopening like one of the mills, a steel mill? Oh no, because that wouldn't fit with our carbon policy. And it's like, hold on a sec. I just put, I remember I think I put a comment. It was like, I've just sat through like 30 minutes of these people bitching and moaning about deindustrialization, and then when they, you know, there's a chance, it's like, oh no, you know, it affects the policy. But the thing there is, these people are so caught up on the hatred of Thatcher and this whole sort of like mental prison they got themselves in. They they have no they have no capacity for any logical thought. But I mean, maybe
Um,
it's the peasant mind. I don't know, but they have
And
no capacity.
there's a real
I would just say, guys, that there is a stream on this channel, a special stream with I'm trying to remember who came on now. Mercian was certainly on there. I think Atman was on there as well, and it's about you know, if you got a decent right wing government in Britain, say like Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain, one of the things you would have to do is some sort of reindustrialization. Now, hopefully, it would be very technically advanced, and there would be lots of automation and AI and all the rest of it involved in it. But you would certainly have to do that if you're going to turn Britain around.
Mhm.
You can't stay as a service sector economy. You can't. Most of Britain, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier in the stream, much of Britain outside London is just a wasteland now
Mm.
in terms of like industry and
Yeah, in
jobs.
business, yeah. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
and
because
there's
I mean, I mean, all it is it's Canary Wharf. It is Canary Wharf in the city.
yeah,
I mean that's it. That is it. That
And even
is
then, yeah, and even then, everyone's leaving because of how high the taxes are. So we're losing that as well to a point where basically we're going to be economically the same as like post Civil War Russia in the
And,
1920s.
and a lot of those jobs, guys, you know, the financial sector jobs in London and what have you, you don't have to go to an office to do those jobs. And you certainly don't have to go to an office in London to do those jobs.
no.
And why would you? Because you leave your nice little flat in your gentrified Islington, and you head off down, and then suddenly you get stabbed by a couple roadmen who take your iPhone, take your wallet, maybe even partly decapitate you. I mean, and the thing there is, before you could say in London, oh well, you wouldn't go to this place at at night, or avoid this area because it's a bit dodgy if you're if you're white or what have you, or something like that. But you can't say that anywhere, because even in central London now, as we've seen this week, for example, there's nowhere you can sort of escape it. There's nowhere you can sort of say, well, I'm going to avoid, like,
Yeah,
I'm not going to get.
the in air quotes diversity has taken over the whole of the city, and it's
Yeah,
never been more dangerous than it is today.
in 2011, when the riots broke out, I went to London for it was actually for my birthday. We went to the Imperial War Museum, and if you know where the Imperial War Museum in proximity to
Mhm.
Brixton,
I know it very
you
well. I
were you,
used to be able to walk to that. It was
were
quite
you
a long walk, but I could.
were you hoping to loot some of it, AI?
yeah, I wanted to get me get.
Yeah,
I was hoping to get a tank or
yeah.
something, sort
Has,
of.
has it has it still got the two big battleship guns outside it? AI.
It has. It's even got now. When I went, it had a chunk of the Berlin Wall, which was put there. I don't know why that was there, but okay, sure, whatever. But yes, it's still got that, and it. I mean, it was great because number one, it was very quiet. But even then, it was like we were okay because all of it was contained into the boroughs. It was contained into Brixton, so it didn't really matter. And then we went to Westminster. We went to Churchill's War Rooms, which was just a massive disappointment anyway. But it was full of Americans, and wasn't that interesting. So after that, we also went to Buckingham Palace and everything. But when we were going round, I didn't see any violence. I didn't see any rioting. The closest I came to hearing it, where I could hear it, was down in Brixton when we were at the Imperial War Museum. I remember seeing there was a column of mounted officers who were heading down towards Brixton, and but now that would be impossible because they'd be all over London if there was a that scale of rioting. And bear in mind that you had social media then, obviously in 2011, but everything was done via BlackBerry, and there was a lot of coordination with various gangs. But today, if they could do that in London, it would be every borough. There wouldn't be anywhere you could say, "Oh, well, don't need to worry about that because I won't be." No, it'd be everywhere.
Mm.
Guys, we're coming up on an hour, so let me do a little bit of channel admin, if you'll forgive me. People in the chat, please hit the like button, hit that thumbs up button. Really helps the channel. Takes you about a second, doesn't cost you a cent or a penny, to be more British. Also, if you want to support the channel, you can do so via Entropy, which is pinned at the bottom of the chat. YouTube have moved where they put pinned posts. You can also ask the panel super chat questions on there if you wish to, which we will address towards the end of the stream. And we've already got one from Gerin for 5 USD. Gerin supports us very regularly. Thank you very much, Gerin. And he just says hello. But so if you want to do those things, I would be most grateful, people. Mitch, this was your topic, so what's your concluding takes on it?
I see here where it says, so in 2024, it said 73% of voters who are 65 and over actually voted, whereas amongst my generation, like it's like 37%. So pretty much every age group below 65, most people choose not to vote. And this will tie into like what's another thing I want to, because Rupert Lowe came out saying that Restore Britain ain't really going to be contesting the local elections all that much outside of Great Yarmouth, Because
Mhm.
it can't.
Well, yeah, it'd be too. It would be too soon, Mitch. I think that was a sensible decision, to be honest.
Like if people are saying we're going to win the next general election, you kind of need people in the local elections coming up. That's why I think he should have announced it at the end of the last year or like into New Year on New Year's.
He should have done it.
Yeah,
Sooner.
yeah, he did haver a bit, as they say in Scotland. He thought about it for longer than he should have. I mean, I'm a full-on supporter of Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain. This channel officially supports Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain at the moment. I'm a member of Restore Britain, and I joined within, I don't know, 10 days of it starting up as a pressure group, long before it was a political party. So yeah, and we will, Mitch. Later on, if you'll remember, please, we need to put up that place that Restore Britain put up where people can volunteer to do stuff for campaigns and things that you put in the Discord. If you remember, I'll put that up on the screen later on. But yeah, I think it's beyond doubt now that Farage and Reform UK are mere containment. That's all they are. Even if they win, they're going to do fuck all that's going to change anything, really. And as the like they're still talking about, oh, people are sick of the uni party. Well, the fucking uni party is joining Restore UK, Reform UK.
Yeah.
You know, they're just becoming the teal Tories, basically, with a few Labour guys as well, including Indian nationals who are joining Reform UK. It's even if Farage wins, they won't do fuck all. And if you can't see that, you've got to be pretty bloody stupid, in my opinion. Now,
yeah, I've seen some people say, oh well, Reform don't really believe in the triple lock, and I'm like, well, Robert Davies certainly does, and he's their chancellor. Like that's the thing. It's just a matter of I don't get why the simple phrase "what you see is what you get" isn't really internalized by people who keep claiming that about.
Yeah, absolutely right, Mitch. And also, these conservative, in air quotes, former conservative cabinet ministers were in power for years, and all they did was make things worse. And somehow, when they join Reform UK, they're suddenly going to turn into totally different beasts. No, they're not. No, they're not.
No.
So yeah, and I like Peter McCormack. He keeps saying about how Jemmick is just a careerist, and it's like if he can see it, like, and he's like more, and he's like, I mean, it's like Connor is a lot more based than he is. Like his 21-year-old son, like he's far more based than he is, and like Peter McCormack is basically just, oh, it's the economy stupid kind of guy. He's not even like Democrat. He's not even like us. Like because you remember that interview he kept doing with Sargon like a few months back, where he said, "Well, we can't get all the immigrants because that's just too uncomfortable for guys like him." And it's just, I'm hoping he moves along because his 21-year-old son certainly is of our bandwidth.
Yeah, his son seems to be a much more based chap. But of course, I will say, like, my Discord is full of young guys, like the guys on the panel here. Or relatively young guys to me, anyway. I'm easily the oldest guy on this channel and on my Discord. But yeah, a lot of young people are waking up. And one of the things I'm happy about is that Restore Britain is picking up a lot more support from younger people than Reform is. A lot more.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember that clip from the Peter McCormack's interview with Matt GPT? And Matt's going on, he's just saying how, well, we don't care. Just saying we don't care about the young people. We need the boomers. And then Peter's son just goes, right, so you just written us off completely. And yeah, that's it. That's the case. It's just Reform are just pure boomer maxing now. That seems to be Farage's new tactic.
Well, I don't know if you heard this, Farion, because I know you joined us a little bit late. But I was saying earlier in the stream that if you look at any Reform UK event in Britain, it's full of boomers, grey and white hair or no hair all over the place,
Yeah.
It's not full of younger people. It sure ain't.
No.
I'm sorry, it's not. AI, did you have a first topic for this week, mate?
I did. I was going to talk about David Starkey's interview with Jeremy Hunt. Sort of follows a bit on the discussion. So, David Starkey conducted an interview this week with Jeremy Hunt. For people who may not know who that is, I think we all know who that, but people don't know who that is. He was a Tory minister under Cameron, the coalition government. I think under May, and
Just for our overseas viewers, AI, David Starkey is a very well-known, fairly right-wing historian, mainly of the Tudor period. You know, Henry VIII and Elizabeth I and what have you. Hunt, who had a nickname which we can't use on this channel because it's YouTube. He is an asshole Tory, basically. But yeah, sorry, carry on, AI.
yeah, he was defense secretary. He was education. I think it was education then defense. I think he was chancellor for a bit as well. So he's done basically all the top roles, and he put a book together saying, what was his book? It was the base. The thesis book was basically that like making Britain great again. Yeah, he was also health secretary as well, and his thing is not by might. His thing is not might makes right, sort of what he describes as Trump style, but basically just Britain being the world's policeman through soft political power. And he did this nice little anecdote, as Starkey referred to it as, when he said that when he was at uni at Oxford, he sorry, I can't. Sorry, okay. When he was at Oxford, he knew this Chinese woman, which is not his wife, by the way, because his wife is Chinese. There's a different Chinese woman. He has them on demand. Anyway,
Yellow fever politician, eh?
yeah, yellow fever. Um, and she was a member of the Communist Party. She was a quite a devout communist, big supporter of Mao and all that, and of the Cultural Revolution. You know, she was all in on that, and she went with him to a debate when he was there, and he was, and he said in this anecdote that this debate was about the poll tax, and he was debating for the poll tax, and then everyone else was debating against it.
It kind of fits, really. You know, he would be in favor of fucking. How can I fuck over as many people as possible? That's like the trajectory of his future career. Yeah.
Yeah. How can I appear to be the most out of touch scumbag on the planet with the most illogical policy going? Yeah, so, Tory 101. She was apparently, according to his story, she was absolutely amazed about how people with vastly different financial policies could come to a sensible position through a debate and everything. And basically what happened is she then sort of became less commie, and as he sort of finished off the story was like it sort of ended badly with her, because then you had like the Tiananmen Square, and I was just thinking, hold on a sec, hold on a sec. So that achieved nothing, because number one, the Tiananmen Square lot were crushed. The Communist Party's still there today. Because I was just listening to it, I was like, hold on a sec, what's the story?
Jeremy Hunt got his friend killed. That's what the story. That's what the moral of the story is.
It's like attend the Oxford debate, start a political movement, get killed. Military dictatorship wins. Oh, okay, sure. Is that the? And yeah, I mean, this is what And of course, Starkey ripped him a new one for that, because at the end of the day, what Hunt wants, what he wants is he wants Britain to have the prestige of its imperial past, but we're going to be nice about it. We're going to
Yeah.
be nice and cuddly, hug a hoodie about it, but we're not going to use might. We're going to use soft power, like debating societies. And I have to
Absolute
say,
bullshit. Absolute bullshit. It doesn't work.
I have to say,
it doesn't work on any level. Doesn't work internationally. Doesn't work in like politics. There is no market of ideas. That is crap. It just is. Sorry, AI.
I have to, and you're 100% right, Andrew, because number one, Starkey just basically said, well, it's just it's utopian nonsense, and he was right to point it out that way. It is total utopian nonsense. But more importantly, though, it is, and I would say that he was actually more sounding like an ideological nut job. He is
Yeah.
that being Hunt. He is like the ultimate, like he's like a liberal fanatic. He is the liberal fanatic, and um I know we mock the Green Party and fringe left-wing groups for being, silly and doing cringe stuff and very gay and very lame and all that sort of stuff. But they're not that naive. They're not that naive than what Hunt is. And Hunt, how old is he? He's like, what, in his late 50s?
It's got to be
He's
mid
like
40s at least.
40, yeah, 40s, 50s. And it's like, how, I mean, a 16-year-old Green Party, upper middle class, silly cow who believes in like ending having solar panels in every field or something. Well, that's okay because that's a 16-year-old. It's a child. Who cares? But when you're that age,
I tell you what, AI, I'd like to show that 16-year-old silly little girl all the dead lizards and frogs and mice and voles and everything else that can't live in that solar panel field.
yeah, but at the same time, when you have those, you can sort of forgive it. But and as Mitch pointed out, he's actually 60 this year. There is a point where Hunter actually should be institutionalized because he needs to be referred to prevent, because he is basically radicalized by liberal globalist utopian ideas. That, I mean, and the reason why we have a fucking pathetic navy as we do today largely is down to him. In reality, the reason why we don't have a functioning navy, and also why we have an aircraft carriers which need I think aircraft carriers which are partly in joint with France and other foreign nations to operate, is because of him. And there's someone in the chat there, some mentioned anyways.
When you say that, you mean that they often need escorts from other nations. Is what you're talking about.
Yeah, escorts.
Yeah.
But even crew,
Let me just say, guys, while I think of this, that look at British foreign aid, which is enormous still, right? And one of the countries Britain gives lots of foreign aid to is India. Now, India, despite the fact that it has very few toilets and stuff like that, India has its own space program. It builds its own aircraft carriers, and it's got nuclear weapons. Why the fuck is the British taxpayer giving India money? If India wants to help out all those poor people that it has who have no toilets, why doesn't it use some of that money rather than using our taxpayers' money?
and also,
yeah. I mean, it's because
Indians
sorry, it's because it makes people like
just-
Jeremy Hunt happy. It makes them feel warm and cuddly. That's basically it.
Yeah, and the thing is, no joke. Jeremy Hunt in this interview, this is another important thing. He said that he said to Starkey and the audience, which by the way, the audience laughed at him with this comment, which I thought was absolutely perfect, but he was totally unfazed by it. He said that soft power of free market ideas debate worked in Africa, worked in the former British colonies in Africa. I kid you not. I kid you not. That motherfucker said that to people. He said that on stage.
I really hope David Starkey said bollocks, but there you go.
I mean, Starkey did obviously bring up Idi Amin for one example. I don't think he didn't veer off into Rhodesia or South Africa because, of course, liberals. I mean, the liberals don't like to talk about that. But you can talk about Idi Amin and the sort of nutters there, and then of course Sierra Leone. I mean, yes, Sierra Leone was it had a marketplace. It wasn't a free ideas, usually machete and AK-47s, but it wasn't a market. It wasn't the marketplace of ideas.
They used to chop women and children's arms off, and in the case of the women, at least, after they had, we're not allowed to say the R word on YouTube, but you know what I mean, guys.
Yeah. The pillaging and what have you. But then the thing there is, and Starkey did come back and said that the reason why, I mean, and he actually did draw the connection of like mass immigration to Europe is because of what him and his government did to Libya, because he tried to have this utopian society created in Libya to replacing Gaddafi and his government, and what he ended up doing was creating a failed state, which then allowed criminal gangs and slave markets to open up in and operate in Libya, which then funnel Africans to Europe, destabilizing North Africa and Europe at the same time.
100%.
Like, well,
yeah,
100%, well done.
Anyway.
Yeah. And when I say criminal organizations, I actually mean largely NGO networks and NGO networks from Europe and other places as well.
Certain small Middle Eastern countries, shall we say?
Yeah, and with that scenario, it's not even an NGO. It's actually it's not a non-government. It is a government organization. So it's not even an NGO.
Yeah.
This is
it's not hiding. It's not hiding. It's just
yeah. No, it's like mask off. We the cattle will die. the temple will be rebuilt on their bones, and I'm not even joking. I'm just quoting the time. Of course, I'm joking. I'm joking. To YouTube, I'm joking. I'm joking.
But if you were to look into it, you might see people saying that, though.
Yeah, and the thing is,
you might actually, Taram. That's very true. But we do have to be careful what we say on YouTube, which is not a free speech platform, sadly.
But the point is that quite frankly, the likes of Jeremy Hunt and the people that the people that follow, who are like him, the Tory type person, they are the same people who did in the Empire. They're the same people who are currently doing in the British people, who have undermined our civilization and society. I mean, quite frankly, that I know what I would do with those people, and they shouldn't be in a debating hall or something. They should be, at least in prison, never in a dark hole, of Calcutta. They should be placed in a dark hole somewhere, never to be seen again. And there's a point of reminder to future generations. These people these people would rather see British people on their hands and knees as slaves and extinct. That is what they will be remembered for.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry, but I'm a bit busy. I've got to go now. But I wanted to come on for a bit. Anyway. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Tharium, thanks.
Hey,
Thanks
Tharium.
for
Bye,
joining
Tharium.
us. Yeah.
It wasn't you, JFC. All right. Yeah. Anyway, take care, everyone.
Okay.
Bye.
He says it was. He says it wasn't you, JFC. I'm not so sure myself.
How's it going,
I'd be
guys?
a bit puzzled by that one, but all right.
Is he still
Jay,
sore from the debate, the quiz on Aubrey's stream? And who won that one? Was it?
Aaron won easily by a long way.
Yeah,
Aaron,
the first question about the mother language of that was that was a bullshit one. That's like a technicality. I when I watched that, I immediately knew it was like, oh, the answer's going to be German, but in reality, no, it's English. Brought up in England, for fuck's sake.
I knew the answer was German, but it wasn't true, so I wasn't going to say it was German. So whatever.
Yeah. She sang a bit of German at Christmas. That means she probably spoke it. It's like, yeah. It's like,
what?
I sing Latin in church. That means my native language. Couple hundred years from now, people say A.I. Sharatori's language, his native language was Latin. It was.
Well, I mean,
it was.
don't forget, Queen Victoria. The love of Queen Victoria's life was Prince Albert, and she really was in love with it. Like she was in mourning for donkey's years after he died in the 1860s.
Yeah.
And she wrote some quite fruity stuff in her diary about when she first got married, which was all in English, by the way. And he was a German, so yeah, I'm sure she understood some German and could speak some German, but her native language was English. It was.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
definitely.
Well, you know why they say that? It's because it's the same like dipshit generation that we've been talking about largely who propagate that, because it is a way of arguing for, well, if she was German, that means we can import 500 billion Africans and Indians to our society because they're just as English as she was, or some bullshit like that. So
or Britain took 50,000 Huguenots over about 150 years. I mean, sure. It's just bullshit. It really is. But yeah, no, that was a fun stream. If people want to see a fun stream, go and watch Aubrey's quiz night stream from yesterday. It was quite amusing. But Aaron Hook ran away with it easily because he just knows so much about books and that sort of stuff.
He's a very knowledgeable person. I particularly on novels and things like that. I had a feeling he would dominate that. And
literature generally, and also I tell you what, Aaron's actually a very big Fundi. Sorry, it's a South Africanism. He's a very big expert on 19th century British politics as well. He's really good on that.
Right on.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to ask Tharium if he had a topic for this evening, but JFC came on and he left. So I'm sure that wasn't the reason, given that JFC streams with Tharium and Mercian on their own show. But JFC, did you have anything you wanted to address? Which, by the way, can be Canadian if you want it to be.
Not in particular.
All right, no worries.
I do have a question. Actually. I'm seeing there was this is my question. Maybe JFC or Duke might know this. With the Sikhs in Canada, there's like this. What was it back in the maybe 19th 20th century? A Sikh man murdered a customs officer or something like that, immigration officer.
Yeah. It was in the 1920s. It was used in a Webley revolver, so I'm assuming,
Yeah, and I see a lot of Sikhs internationally use that as like a point of celebration, and there's a lot of like I know like Endeavour, who's a bit of a you know a vocal sort of opponent on that, and they're attacking Sikhs and particularly for celebrating that. And I was just thinking,
Endeavour has been on this channel several times. Good bloke, Endeavour. Good Canadian guy.
yeah, and I had like this thought today, like what if Canadians start like revering General Dyer, like hero worshipping General Dyer, as to counterbalance that.
well, it should
And
be.
he's
I think they do
General
even
Dyer and his Gurkha soldiers. Yeah, it was the Gurkhas, by the way, who opened fire on the Indian crowd. But okay.
No. I do. Screw it, the Gurkhas. Let's just claim it as us. Like, yeah, we did fuck up your little gathering.
General Dyer was British, and so were the officers in the Gurkha regiment. So they were British, but it was actually a Gurkha regiment that opened fire and
you just use that clip from the film Gandhi film, which and it's a terrible film, but has a good like you have was it Edward Fox playing General Dyer, and he's in the courtroom, and he says like the judge says, if you were able to bring the machine gun into the square, would you have used that? And he's just like straight face, yes, I would. Why? Send a message to the whole of India.
AI, look, I'm going to tell you something, right? Now, as I've already said on this stream, I'm an old bastard. I'm 61 years old, okay? So my grandfather, who was born in 1904, served in India between the wars in the British Army. And he told us when he came home, he was talking to my dad and his 7 children. People still had families in those days. And he said, the definition of a virgin in India is a goat that can run faster than a Sikh. That was a British Army joke in the 1930s. So, this whole idea that the Sikhs are all great and based and what have you, which Tommy Robinson will try and tell us, and what's his name? The guy who wrote the AI book.
Matt GPT.
Yeah, Matt GPT will try and tell us that the Sikhs are all based in good. Okay.
Yeah, how much of that though is just because I'm reading stuff along the lines of after the Indian Mutiny, you just had this situation where certain types of Indians were liked above others. One of those being the Sikhs, being like a very martial class that could contribute a lot of manpower.
They brought in the martial races after the Indian Mutiny. And it was purely based on Indians that were better at fighting and less likely to kill all your women and children, as many of the Hindus had done during the Indian Mutiny. So, that's really what it was.
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but there's also that film Victorian Abdul with Judi Dench, and it was something like apparently Queen Victoria didn't know that it wasn't just the Hindus who rebelled; it was also the Muslims, because apparently she has that Muslim servant, and what happened was this Muslim servant didn't tell her that the Muslims took part in it.
That is possible, Mitch. And it's certainly true that many Muslims did rebel during the Indian Mutiny. Yes, they did, for sure.
Didn't the actual last line of the Mughals join in with the rebellion?
Yeah. The King of Delhi, as he was known by this stage, who lived in the Red Fort, which is still there in Delhi. He reluctantly, I think, went over to the rebels, basically because the rebels said, you're going to come over to us as the representative of the Mughals, and if you don't, we'll kill you. So, yeah. Because he was an old dude by that time. He wasn't a young man.
Well, it's like the Mughal Empire. I mean, the last real Mughal emperor was you're talking like Aurangzeb. He died in like 1710 or something like that.
Yeah. The King of Delhi was kind of the last remnant of that line, and the Brits had him in basically very comfortable retirement in Delhi. As I say, the Red Fort was where he lived. And that was his house. It was quite big, I agree with Edmund 184 in the chat that Gandhi is an atrocious movie. So atrocious, I've never actually watched all of it. Gandhi was a very middle class Indian lawyer. He started off in South Africa, where there are a lot of Indians, particularly in Natal. In fact, Durban, I think, is the biggest Indian city outside of the subcontinent. And the Zulus hate the Indians big time. They riot and loot all their shops from time to time when they get fed up with them enough. Gandhi was a lawyer in South Africa. He actually was a stretcher bearer for a while during the Anglo-Boer War for the British. And then he went back to India, where he masqueraded as a fakir, as a holy man. Wore his little loincloths and all the rest of it. But he was actually a very well-educated Indian lawyer. And there's a lot of very dubious stuff about Gandhi, which no Indian nationalist will ever talk about. Like he supported, for example, allowing the Japanese to take over India. And if you look at what the Japanese did to the native populations in all the other countries they took over, that wouldn't have been real nice for the Indians. I got to tell you guys, it wouldn't have.
Yeah, I know. Like, there are cases where apparently Gandhi was. I think he has some really weird views about what is it like that border what we would call paedophilia, and apparently.
Yes, absolutely true. Mitch, again, this is YouTube. We're on X, but we're also on YouTube. And YouTube is not a free speech platform. So we have to be a little bit careful of what we actually discuss here. But yeah, in general terms, Gandhi was a little bit heading in that kind of direction, shall we say. He would sleep with very young girls and claim it was platonic. But I don't know about you guys. I wouldn't really sleep with like a 12 or 13-year-old girl. I just wouldn't, even platonically. Not in the same bed. Just wouldn't.
Yeah, that's not all right.
Yeah, but yeah, no, all true. Okay, well, I guess if you haven't got a particular subject, JFC, and if you come on here again, which I hope you will, that's what we always start the stream off with. Is I give everyone a chance to bring up anything they bloody well want to, basically, preferably somewhat British and Old Commonwealth related, but that can certainly be Australian or Canadian or what have you. But yeah, that's how we do things on here. We didn't get Aubrey because she's at the hairdressers, right? And women, they're not what people say they are. Honestly, they're just the same as blokes. They don't spend 3 or 4 hours in the hairdressers, honestly. And I'm not having a go at Aubrey, by the way, because she actually told me. I forgot, but she did actually tell me a day or so ago she was going to be at the hairdresser because she's going down to see a bloke in the south of America. So she's making herself pretty, which is fair enough. But did anyone else have something in particular they wanted to talk about so I don't bore people with modern military shit?
Yeah, the other story that's been breaking today is outside Sadiq Khan's house, the mayor of London, who we have already mentioned on this stream thus far, in passing, there was a bit of a weird incident that occurred last night, and it was members of the public. This man, white English man, and his pregnant wife, who were walking home or to a taxi or something, who they're passing by Sadiq Khan's home, and he found this rucksack, and inside there was an MP5 machine gun, a few pistols, and a taser.
That's a submachine gun. The
Oh, sorry,
MP5.
some machine gun, and I think a couple pistols which were all in their holsters.
Wasn't it a cop who just forgot them?
Well, yeah. This is the sort of bizarre thing. The couple, from what happened was they took the rucksack home with them, and then phoned the police when they got there. Because I think they live relatively close to Steve Khan's house, so they just walked, possibly like walked down a street or something, and they phoned the police, and the police turned up and was like, "Oh yeah, here you go, thank you," and they just like checked it, make sure everything was still there, and went on their way. And yeah, the story behind that is it's a little weird, because also at the same time is in the same area, you had like these steaming all these blackened these all black teenagers going around into shops and everything as hordes. They were going around at this time, and I I I don't want to be conspiracy minded of this, but I do find it a little weird that this happened outside Sadiq Khan's property, and I know it sounds a bit mental and mad, but in my conspiracy minded sort of rationale, my rationale to this, I was just thinking like, did these rando couple just like prevented a false flag, a false flag event by mistake or something?
I mean, it's possible. It is very strange.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a very incompetent police officer if they just left all those weapons. Steve in the chat is saying, I didn't know anybody still used MP5s. British police use MP5s all over the place, mate. And listen, if anyone who's not British, the idea that the British police are not armed anymore, I would advise you go visit London, and all you'll see is armed police all over the place. And it's one of the joys of diversity that we have to have these armed police all over the place.
Well, there was that case of that Martin Blake fellow who shot a black criminal, that Chris Cabot, I think his name was, and I think he got exonerated, but basically he still got hounded so much that he ended up having to quit the police. So even if you're a good police officer who actually uses his weapon in an emergency situation, you'll still get hounded, and it's just that's. I know Bovril on Twitter. He was saying because he was promoting the idea that Americans like Aubrey and others who can trace Anglo ancestry, they also move over to Britain because Bovril basically, you have a whole what's it called, right to return that Israel does. Basically, do that, but for Anglo descended people to come to England if they feel that their countries are.
To some degree, I'm not against that, actually, Mitch. I lived in South Africa for 15 years. I've lived in Australia for 26 years now. I've been back to England, of course, during that time. And officially, I still own property in England, although actually it's my son's, of course. I'm not. I'm a big Kanzok supporter. Okay, but I'm only a big Kanzok supporter if you have really based right-wing nationalist governments in Britain, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. In that event, I would absolutely fully support a Kanzok alliance. I really would.
I think, like, I know Bovril, he was saying stuff along the lines of, well, he thinks that certain countries like America and Australia, Canada, New Zealand, and South Africa are beyond, at the moment, seem to be beyond saving. So what he says is everyone retreat to the motherland, and then we'll just take back Canada, America, New Zealand, Canada, and so on at a later point. I think that was Bovril Like he was at
I'm in a Discord group, Mitch, which is let me check actually because I want to get the title right. I'm in a Discord group called the Society for the Formation of the Second British Empire. So there we go.
yeah.
I'm not unsympathetic to that, but
Yeah,
as with the original British Empire, I think the mistake was that
maybe too nice.
well, no, it wasn't that. I think the mistake was in the 1880s and 1890s and the very early 1900s. The people who wanted to form an imperial federation, and they only really wanted a federation of Britain, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and also some Africa, Rhodesia. They didn't manage to get their way forward because people like Churchill went against it very strongly. But that would have been the way for the British Empire to go on and be a serious political entity rather than simply something that was united by, well, I suppose still is to some degree, by a monarchy and all that shit and sentiment. You would have needed tariff policies that made all those countries' goods cheaper in all those countries, and you would have needed an imperial parliament with representatives of the white people of those countries in proportion to their populations. That could have worked really well, I think. I've actually got a stream that I did with Aaron Hook about Joe Chamberlain, who was a big supporter of imperial federation in the late 19th century and early 20th century. And so I would suggest people go watch that. It was only a few weeks ago on the channel. But I don't know what JFC thinks about that as a colonial boy.
Yeah, I'll just round off by saying because there's a fair point to say that unlike America, we have like a very centralized system. So if all it takes is one government under someone like Rupert Lowe, and then everything gets turned over inside of a few terms of office. Whereas in America or other countries, it's a lot more complicated because they've got smaller because I know Canada has a population of 25 million. Was it not 25? 40 million, I think, is something like that.
It's over 40 million. It's probably about over 43 million now. But that's not the population of Canadians in Canada. That's the problem.
Yeah, I've seen some of the immigration figures for Canada under Trudeau, and it's absolutely insane how many. Like, it was like Boris wave for the entire Trudeau premiership.
Isn't Mark Carney starting the sort of return policy to a lot of those more recent arrivals?
To the international students, he's sending a bunch of them home. I mean, well, that's just, I'm not giving him credit for it because that should be our normal state of affairs. You come here as a student, you study, you're done your studies, you go home.
Yeah, because the one thing I saw that was jading was that Prince Edward Island, where the beaches had to be closed off because the Indians kept crapping on it.
Oh yeah,
those were international students.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of beaches where they're shitting all over the place. I think on Lake Ontario.
Yeah, Australia's not a lot better, guys. I mean, Australia's population has gone up hugely over the last 20 years. And trust me, that population is not Anglo-Celtic people by any means. It's not. It's Chinese and it's subcontinent people, basically.
Guys, do you think? And look, I like the British Empire as much as the next person here, but do you guys think that the success of it, unfortunately, has come back to bite us like today a bit too much? Because
only if you're a leftist, only if you're a leftist. That is the leftist argument. Oh, you conquered Uganda and you conquered India and you conquered Canada and Australia New Zealand and, oh, well, you deserve all these fucking immigrants. No, Britain brought, in the case of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and later on Rhodesia, Britain brought civilization to those countries.
Yes.
And in the case of the black and brown countries, like the African countries and what have you, Britain brought some semblance of law and order and fairness to those countries. And in India, for example, the British stopped things like sati, which was where the young widow or concubine of an Indian Hindu prince would be chucked alive, often screaming and fighting, onto her husband's funeral pyre. Now, Britain stopped that.
Yeah.
We also got rid of the thuggee, who were the guys who, for hundreds of years, had made the Indian roads desperately dangerous, mostly for other Indians, by strangling them, partly for monetary gain, but also supposedly for religion, the Kali and all that shit. But yeah, no, the British Empire was an entirely good thing, but that doesn't give anyone the right to come to Britain. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
I wasn't sort of insinuating. What I was trying to say was because of the success of Britain, I do wonder that sometimes, the downside is that we did, because when we left, we did leave India as a united civilization that could then be globalized. It's kind of like we sort of created like a bit of a monster. And also same in Africa, where we had this cultivated landscape of Africa, which allowed the population to boom beyond really its means as it should have been. I mean, that's why you had so many famines.
As Woodpit has pointed out in the chat, modern sanitation and modern medicine also. Britain took that all over the world. So yeah, that certainly did help the expansion of these bloody people. But yeah.
Yeah, and quite frankly, they don't deserve it. I mean, we see now they really didn't deserve it, and I don't know. It's just I'm sorry, I'm a bit drunk, so I'm not thinking clearly. But I'm just I do have these thoughts on it, but.
Well, it's the only way you can look at the modern world. AI is you don't want to be totally sober when you look at the modern Western world and the modern Britain and Canada and Australia. You don't, because you look how much better things were in the past, and now it's been totally fucked over basically the last 50 years, really.
I mean, in reality, we need like a population collapse in Africa and Asia. We need a massive population collapse so they could return.
There's something going wrong with your sound, AI. I'm not sure what it is.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's perfect, mate. That's perfect. But yeah, no, I don't disagree with you at all, mate. I was going to ask JFC, what do you think there is a solution in Canada, or do you think it can be things could be turned around so that Canada becomes like really Canadian again?
Well, I mean, there's a solution. I just don't know how we're going to get there. Our people are so beyond subverted. It is just it feels so hopeless. Like basically all the people support a wing of the Uniparty, or they don't vote at all, and it's just like, where is our Rupert Lowe? We don't have it.
Well, you might get one. I will say this: the Canadians I like, and I like quite a lot of Canadians, and I've known Canadians for years. When I was in the military in South Africa, one of my mates was a ex-Canadian Royal Canadian engineer. But yeah, it's there is a solution, and the Canadians I like, for example, mostly like the old Canadian flag. You know, before you got the maple leaf thing that you have now, the old red ensign flag,
Yeah.
which of course represents the British guys who moved to Canada and also the French. And yeah, I think the rot set in under the first Trudeau pretty much. So, you know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, what's interesting in Canada is that it's like the Quebecans are like the only ones that can be somewhat ethno-nationalist. That
Yeah.
they have apart. I mean, apart from like the native, apart from like the Indian tribes who always get that privilege anyway, whether it be Canada or America. Apart from them, it's like the only like European group that can be any way ethno-nationalist is the Quebecans. But even that's a bit, that limited.
Yeah, well they're allowed to have their own language laws and all sorts of different things to protect their culture and their people. And if they don't want more immigration, then they're allowed to slow immigration there, but the rest of us just have to fucking deal with it.
How did they get that? And was it through terrorism? It does like
No,
the
no,
Northern.
no, no AI. It was the British being nice to them after Canada was captured by the British.
Yeah.
The British were quite generous with the Quebecois, and allowed them to keep their own laws and education and all the rest of it. And as a result, I have to say, during the War of 1812, for example, when the Americans fought, the Quebecois would support them. They didn't. They fought for the British against the Americans.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the same happened with winter of 1775. Like the Americans sent an expedition up to Quebec, and they all just either got killed or froze to death, if I remember correctly, in the winter.
Mm.
But
I was going
Yeah,
to say like.
the Quebecois, the French Canadians, were fairly cut off from France. You know, even at the time of the 7 Years' War, when you had General Wolfe and, as we were talking about the other week, Captain Cook charting the
Yeah.
St. Lawrence River and all this kind of stuff. Even then, there were relatively few metropolitan French people going to Canada. You know, and so
Yeah.
when the British won that war. And they allowed the Quebecois, the French Canadians, to keep basically all of their legal and educational and all that stuff, language and all the rest of it. Those guys thought, okay, cool, this is not really much worse than being under the French king. And of course, when the French Revolution happened in the early 1790s, the Quebecois, who were mostly royalists because they moved there years ago, they didn't support that, really, the vast majority of them. So this all played into the fact that when the War of 1812 comes along, the Quebecois were pretty firmly on the British side, not the American side.
Yeah, that's right.
And I had a mate, by the way, when I was living in England still, who was a French Canadian, and strange to say, he was married to a New Zealand girl, a white New Zealand girl, and yeah, he had this beautiful Citroen car from the 1940s with running boards, and like it was the sort of thing you'd see in a Alain Delon gangster movie. It was really cool. But his dad had gone across to Normandy in 1944. He was a Canadian soldier, and he was a volunteer as well, not a conscript. But he was
Yeah,
French Canadian.
there was a lot of volunteers from here. A hell of a lot of volunteers.
Oh, listen, people forget that when the Normandy invasion happened, It was the British and Americans for sure, but it was also the Canadians, and people forget that now very often.
Yeah. And it's like you take you take the Canadians of World War One. Like I would, I mean, it's only my humble opinion, but I would fully say the Canadians were probably some of the best troops in the world at that particular point in 100 Days Offensive.
And in World War II, Mitch, and in World War II, the Canadian Army got into a private war with an SS division because the SS troops captured some Canadians and executed them, which the SS occasionally did. It has to be said.
Yeah.
You know, there are people who will say they didn't, but yeah, they did. I'm sorry. And the Canadians just retaliated. They started executing the SS who they captured. They were pretty fucking tough back then.
There's on Steam. This is related, but on Steam there is this game demo I tried out, which was about the Royal New Finland Regiment in Gallipoli, and it follows like this group of this platoon of soldiers from that regiment, and it's the demo so far is them like on the scouting between trenches and everything, and it's sort of like a survival thing.
The famous Blue Putties AI.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and if you guys have got Steam or anything, I will find its name. I think it's called the Kirill Path, or something like that. But it's the demo is very good. It's very good.
I think I'm right in saying that it was the Newfoundland Regiment, and I think Newfoundland is the way you pronounce it, isn't it, JFC?
Newfoundland.
Yeah. People say Newfoundland and all this, but it isn't. It's Newfoundland.
It's like a new fun, like having fun, and then land. And
Newfoundland. All right, fair enough. Cool. Thank you for that. I'll take your word because I sure ain't Canadian. But I think they were the only non-British troops who fought on the first day of the Somme as well in 1916.
Yeah, I mean,
they
technically
were almost. Of course, like many of the British troops that day, they were almost wiped out.
I mean, technically speaking, the Newfoundland wasn't part of Canada. It was its own separate dominion, like its own separate.
Yeah, they only joined Canada in about 1949 or something like that. Yeah.
There was a referendum. It was a knife edge referendum as well. It was quite close, if I remember correctly, when I looked into it. But yeah, I think you guys enjoy it. Actually, I thought it's not like an action shooter up sort of thing. It is like a first person thing, but it's more like survival. And I will say, whoever the developer was, they got the mentality and the lingo, because it's really fun. The accents of the the sort of Newfoundlanders, it's kind of like this bizarre, like Irish, Scottish twang to it, which I'm told is quite accurate. It's kind of like sort of accurate.
It's mostly Irish.
Yeah,
there's towns in Newfoundland where Irish people can go visit and be like, oh, I can see exactly where their ancestors came from back in Ireland, because it's still so similar. And the accent will also change from town to town as well.
I will say the landscape looks very. If you've ever been to like Western Isles of Scotland or Ulster, it's very similar, very very similar style sort of landscape.
And if you go to the east coast of Canada, just beyond Newfoundland, there's Nova Scotia, which of course is New Scotland, by the way. So yeah, it's there was a reason. There was a reason the old Canadian Red Ensign had like the symbols for England, Scotland, Ireland, and France on it. You know, that was
Yeah,
where the settlers came from.
and there's still Gaelic speakers, Scottish Gaelic speakers in Nova Scotia, as well as on Cape Breton Island. And they
Yeah.
also
Well,
have
I've
when they
got at this stage, I've got to recommend. Sorry to interrupt you,
yeah, no
JFC.
worries.
I've got to recommend Rob's channel, British Muzzleloaders on YouTube. It's a brilliant British military history and firearms channel, and he is a Canadian of Scottish heritage. Like you know, he very often will wear Highland uniforms and stuff, really good period Highland uniforms and things. But he's a Canadian, and it's one of the best British military history and firearms channels on YouTube.
Oh,
Rob is really, really cool. He's a good guy.
yeah, I was gonna say uh, like the Nova Scotians, their Canadian accent is different to ours out west here, um, and the Cape Breton Canadian accent is also different to that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Lothar Sheffield was talking about the Newfoundlanders being massacred attacking the Schwaben Redoubt. And Lothar Sheffield, I know, has done a lot of research into the Battle of the Somme. So I'm sure that's correct. And Woodfit is pointing out that Rob's South African Zulu War stuff is really good. He's also got a series of videos on the Battle of Inkerman in the Crimean War, which are the best things on YouTube on Inkerman by a very long way. And Rob runs British Muzzleloaders. It's all written as one word. But if you put British Muzzleloaders in, you'll find it. Great, great channel. JFC, let me ask you. I keep hearing that the western or middle part of Canada might break away from the rest of it. Is that realistic, or is it just nonsense? What do you think?
It's a big distraction. It is a bunch of nonsense. Um, the so the the separatists here in Alberta have gotten enough signatures to trigger a referendum, which I think the threshold was like 177,000 or something like that. But our population is about like 5 million now, and I've been seeing online all these separatist guys like, oh, we've been out getting like signatures and whatnot and support hundreds every day. It's okay, yeah, hundreds. Our population is 5 million. I think they're unfortunately in a bit of an echo chamber, and they've deluded themselves into thinking, oh, we've got like 60-70% support. So a little bit of context. The Western exit movement, which was hashtagged as Wexit, had peak support due to like anti-Trudeauism in 2019, and the support for it peaked around 30%. Now, we do not have the same amount of support and enthusiasm as we did then. It is far, far lower now. So I've been estimating, when we do have the referendum in October, it's going to be around 20% leave and 80% stay. And I really think that's 20% leave. That's me being generous. So yeah, it's a bit of hogwash, and it's all a big distraction, and all these people should be spending their time and their energy into addressing the real problems we have here, and they're just going to waste their time because they're going to do all this effort and whatnot, and then October's going to come around and they're going to get 20% support, and be absolutely flabbergasted. Oh, I thought we were going to win. No, no.
It's difficult to break up a country. It really is.
It sounds to me that they've got like Trudeau derangement syndrome, like they're again. I talked about like the Northerners, like some like Mike Cutie's hatred of Thatcher and how that affects them to this day. It's kind of like their hatred for. I mean, listen, Trudeau. I mean, I think Trudeau and his father were, looking at them, the most toxic, poisonous, pathetic groups of leaders who did real damage and have done real damage to Canada. But
Absolutely.
but at the same time, I think if you hate someone too much, it can make you blind, and you can end up being like a problem yourself. And
Yep.
I've noticed a lot of Canadians over the years have got themselves invested with MAGA and a lot of the MAGA stuff, and trying to replicate that there in Canada. And I mean, look what happened when they tried to replicate.
A lot of that broke down AI because Trump came out, as he has done repeatedly recently. I really think Trump's losing his marbles. I really do. I think he's going. I think he's going the way of Joe Biden, to be honest.
Well,
he came out with, "Oh yeah, we're going to take over Canada." Well, that ain't going to fucking work. And all that did was help get that Carney bastard elected. And Carney, of course, was a former head of the Bank of England. So, total globalist.
I know people were comparing him to Trump to my favorite Roman emperor, Caligula, Gaius Germanicus, if you will. I know there's been that comparison. One thing I will say, my boy Caligula, he was no Zionist. He was no Zionist. That's all I will say.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, well, my favorite Roman emperor for that sphere of, let's say, that part of the world would have to be Hadrian. But I won't say.
Yes.
Yeah, you could apparently, like, Israeli guys go to Rome even today and spit at the Arch of Titus because it's got the menorah on it. I mean, those guys hold a grudge. They really do.
What's the name of that? What's the name of a Jewish guy? That guy who walked over the college up in, like, what is it, Pacific Northwest?
Eric? What is it? Eric Weinstein or whatever it is.
It's either him or Brett. And
Brett Weinstein.
Yeah, basically he flipped off, like, what is it, like, Hadrian's column or something like that over in Rome when he was visiting. Like, and he's like,
it's the arch. The arch.
Oh.
Yeah. What's incredible is
the Arch of Titus, actually.
Yeah, it's
because Titus was the guy who finally finished the Jewish war for the Romans.
Well, it destroyed the temple, the Jewish temple, and
not even on purpose, apparently. But yeah, and as Woodpit says in the chat, 2,000 years and they're still seething.
Yeah. Do you know what my favorite like early, like the early Christian bishops sort of stuff responses, like they do say, like, well, Christ did warn you guys. He did warn you guys like 100 years before, like, that would happen.
Listen, I've got to plug a really good stream I watched. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. Radical Liberation, Radical Liberation, Radlib.
Yeah, Radlib, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a good channel that I don't watch as much as I should, but I did watch his stream the other day about the Samson option, and this is really basically about Israeli nuclear weapons. And the Israeli plan is, if they're going to be overrun by the Arabs, I don't think that's very likely to happen these days, but if it did, their plan was to not only fire on all the Arab cities, but to fire at the Soviet Union at the same time, back in the day. And that would basically start World War III and kill everybody. That was their idea of the Samson option. But I recommend Radlib's stream. It's really good, actually. loads of documentary evidence and what have you. And his main thing, I think, was written by an American Jewish guy, actually. But yeah. But yeah, the strange country, Israel. Strange
yeah.
country. Very strange country. Listen, if they can hold their country with their own soldiers, good luck to them. I don't give a fuck. But I wouldn't want to see one British soldier fighting for them. And I know,
not one British pound going to pay them for anything as well.
yeah,
Ah,
absolutely, JFC, absolutely. And I even know fairly normie MAGA Americans who have pretty much the same view.
Mhm.
Like if they put American Marines or paratroopers or whatever it might be into Iran, I think Trump is going to lose his support so big time. It's unbelievable.
Oh
Because
yeah.
even a lot of pretty normie Americans are now saying, sorry, yeah, all right, bit of bombing, we don't really care, a few missiles, all right. But you know, if you're going to get like hundreds of Americans killed in a ground war, the Americans are going to really get fucked with that. And I don't see how Trump doesn't see it. But of course, you know, Trump took financial aid from certain quarters, you know, shall we say the Israel lobby,
Yeah.
and he's a bit beholden, to be honest.
I mean,
Yeah.
the trouble is also that with that lot as well, with Israel and people govern them. Not there is a religious side to it, and they for them they think that they're fixing. Someone in chat said, 2,000 years seething. It is though, but they honestly think that they will be able to fix a lot of the wrongs that went on, and screw anybody else that gets in the way. And the problem is, and I agree. You can't. It's dangerous to deal with a lot of like these fanatical states, particularly those who are um, are effectively foreign to Europe and to our civilization. But what they want and what they request of us and our nation at all time, um, it, it it's breaking, because no everyone, when I talk about the state of London and stuff, the state of every European, every Canadian included in this, city, capital, doesn't matter, wherever, um you're told you're told that and our identities don't exist, yet we have to be fiercely loyal to this particular group who can have an identity and be basically the ethno-national state. I mean, of course, that's not going to work. I mean, I don't want to say, "Oh, this is them being hypocritical." It's not even that. It's not even that. And it does boil down, because that is something that is going to that exists in every single mind of people on the right, even those who may have been, in the past, somewhat favourable of Israel from a like a centre Tory sort of thing, perspective. Even in their
Yeah.
mind, there's like, how come they get to have it and we don't?
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
It's
Yeah,
more and more glaringly obvious now.
yeah, yeah. If you can have a ethno state in Israel, why can't Britain have an ethno state? Why can't Canada have an ethno state? Why
Yeah.
can't Australia have an ethno state?
China
It's
gets to have it.
yeah. No,
yeah, and Japan even keeps one just about.
Yeah. I
yeah.
think they're in the process of being subverted now, but up until
I,
now,
I
they've got to have one.
from what I hear, JFC, from people who actually live in Japan, that is somewhat exaggerated, to be honest. The Japanese still have much more of an ethno state than anyone believes, and half of these channels that claim Japan is being cut are not actually from Japan. You know.
Yeah.
I think most of
By the way,
the
can I just say, Mitch has left us. Thank you for joining us, Mitch. I'm sorry, mate. I wish you'd been able to stay a bit longer. Can I just say to people, while I think of it, go and subscribe to Mitch's YouTube channel. It's called Mitch, and he's got this really good series going on about the American Civil War, which I know very little about because I don't follow foreign non-Anglo-Celtic countries. But it's good and it's pretty accurate as far as I can tell. So do go and subscribe to Mitch's channel. I'm sorry, guys. Carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, as you mentioned, for them as well, the particularly the more politically Zionist minded, is they do hate Rome. They hate Rome, and if you hate Rome, you are hating effectively all European civilization, including Britain. You're hating, French, obviously Italian, and so on and so forth. You're hating all of it, and if you can't agree, and I'm not even going to go into like the religious side of it because you know that's that they can speak for themselves on that bit. But um if they can't agree that fundamentally that the civilization is good or what they want, which they don't, and then it's made clear time and time again on a foundational route, then I just of course they can't be allies. And as my wife, I've always said, I E- Europe will at some point we will abandon them. The way that they get, how they've had control over people before is a lot of it is the guilt complex, particularly what happened to post-war, the post-war sort of stuff and the legacy of the Holocaust. But the thing is, as time has gone on, as many of the veterans are dying, I doubt there's many World War II veterans left or people from that era left. It's getting slimmer and slimmer. There's going to be a point soon where there'll be none, and it will just go into the annals of history. It will just become another event in history.
Yeah.
That whole period of European decimation will become, another point in history, like Napoleon or the Hundred Year Wars or the fall of Rome or whatever. And I think it should be because, quite frankly, the a lot of bad policy, that's been introduced in our countries has been done under the guises of, well, we don't want to end up like 1930s Germany or something like that. And that mindset has to stop. And
Oh, yes.
It's insane, AI, because I'm sorry, but we fought against 1930s Germany. So what the fuck has that got to do with Britain?
yeah, and
It's
to
just
be
bullshit. I'm sorry, it is. Even look, I'm not particularly anti-German. I'm really not. But
I'm not
you know what?
anti-German
We
either.
we we didn't support them. Like
no.
like hundreds of thousands of our dudes were killed playing them. So why is that our problem? It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the Oriental countries have gotten over Japan, the Japanese Empire. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
you still have like
Well, yeah,
anti-Japanese.
I'd argue that. Yeah, no, I'd argue that Korea and China haven't. But all right, fair enough.
Well, okay, maybe you have like the odd one or two. Like, I mean, China, the party will still like. I think their opposition to Japan is more geopolitical, but you don't see like Japanese guilt complex in China. That the Chinese will just say, "Oh, well, it was a great
Well,
patriotic war," or something like
but
that.
no. More importantly, AI. What you don't see in Japan is a guilt complex.
No,
Yes.
no,
Right?
you don't.
The Japanese people don't have a guilt complex because they're not fucking stupid. Unlike many people in the West. Oh my God! A load of Jewish people were killed in World War II. But you know what? far more other people were killed in World War II, but no one gets killed over them, really.
Yeah.
Well, it's like what was it in the Soviet Union? What was it like? What was it like 30 million?
Listen, Stalin had
Ukrainians,
killed.
Russians, yeah.
Stalin had killed, like, I don't know, 12 million of his own people before World War II even started.
Yeah.
At which
Yeah.
stage Adolf Babes was a mere little guy in terms of mass murder. And listen, I'm certainly not a neo-Nazi or anything like that. But
Yeah.
you know what? Was Adolf particularly evil? Yeah, but then so was Stalin, so was Mao, so were many other people, you know?
Stalin and Mao were way worse. Way worse.
I mean, I would say,
In total numbers killed, JFC, yeah,
Absolutely.
well, I mean,
absolutely.
by proportion, though, Pol Pot is the worst by proportion. Like what he did to his own population. Like,
Yep. Yeah, another good point. Another good point.
Yeah.
And Lothar Sheffield is talking about the Holodomor in Ukraine in the 1930s by Stalin. Yeah, like I said, prior to 1941, Stalin was the world's biggest mass murderer by a very huge long way. Like
yeah.
Adolf Babes hadn't even got started at that stage.
It is worth mentioning because I have been reading the a book on the you know on Stalin. It is worth mentioning a lot of the deaths started with Lenin. You know, Lenin gets sort of excused from
Yes.
it. Lenin was very much involved in much of the, particularly
Yeah,
the
he was a
genders.
vile. He was a
Yeah.
vile cunt, mate. He was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
history forgets about his role. He was very much as culpable in many ways because he set the ball rolling. He is as culpable as Stalin. I mean, Stalin just. I mean, the thing was, Lenin left a chaotic system. Stalin did. Like, I mean, and also Trotsky. The reason why there was so much constant killing, constant chaos, was also down to Trotsky. I mean, the only good thing Stalin did was he got rid of that lunatic because Trotsky was like the Jacobins being the most radical faction in the French. I mean, that's what Trotsky was in the Bolshevik movement. Him and his lot were the most radical.
And the French Jacobins were vile, murdering scum who killed thousands and thousands and thousands of ordinary people, not rich aristocrats, although they killed plenty of them, but they killed thousands and thousands of ordinary French people who were devout Catholics and things like this. And of course, people forget that Napoleon was a child of that revolution, and he actually said he was a Jacobin.
Yeah,
Which he
and
was. Which he
but
was.
yeah, but my point is, I want the likes of Lenin, Stalin, Hitler, and everything. They need to be confined to the history books, and Israel, effectively, Israel needs to become just a normal nation. This whole exceptional thing and this religious like fanaticism that goes with it, that bullshit needs to stop, because
Yes.
quite frankly, it's killing our societies, and more importantly, it's wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just going to go away from the political side and my political machinations here. It's wrong. What they're doing is wrong. What we're allowing them to do is wrong, and and the weakness of our government for not stopping them, it is wrong. They cannot be allowed to do this, because if they do, it makes the European man their permanent bitch for another 100,000 years.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason I really love Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain and their pledge to end not only halal but also Sharia law in Britain, which I think is excellent. And both of them, they're both against British animal welfare laws anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know people have been saying, "Oh well, he's not saying nothing." It's like, look, come on, guys, this is like Starmer's Britain. This is Labour Party Britain. If he says anything, if he was to even replicate what we're saying here tonight or something, or what or what people say regularly, he'd be in prison. He would end up getting himself into,
Yeah,
he would
yeah,
would
yeah.
have the whole weight, not in prison maybe, but he would have the whole weight of the system coming
Well,
crashing down on top of him.
let's remember that when he was a member of Reform UK, he supposedly, according to Zia Yusuf, a Sri Lankan Muslim in his 30s, this 67-year-old man threatened him, and poor old Zia, a 30-year-old, a man in his 30s from a Muslim from Sri Lanka, felt threatened. And Nigel Farage went along with that.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm 61, right? I wouldn't want to fight a guy in his mid-30s because unless I knocked him out immediately, I'm going to lose. I mean, all right, I had a triple heart bypass a couple of years ago, so that ain't going to help me. But also, I don't have any stamina at my age. So how Zia Yusuf was scared of Rupert Lowe is totally beyond me. Unless, of course, he's a gay woman or something like that. I don't know. Maybe he is.
I think he's scared of Rupert's potential. I think that's what he's actually scared of.
Yeah, Rupert is the only guy I have any hope for Britain in at the moment. Actually, that's an exaggeration. Other people supporting Restore Britain, I have some hope for. I'm quite prepared for it to turn into a damp squib, but I hope it won't. And I'm really encouraged by the really big numbers of young Anglo-Celtic British men, like real British men, who are supporting Restore Britain. It's our best hope. Like, I know many people like to say we can't fight our way out of this. Well, maybe we can't. But I do think Rupert Lowe and Restore Britain are the only chance. I really do.
Yeah, and even if we can't vote our way out of this, at least we can try, right? And then if it fails, then we can say, well, at least we tried, and now it's time for violent revolution. And we've explored all options, all peaceful options, and we have no other
We'll
peaceful
say
options left.
peaceful Jesus.
Yeah.
We'll say peaceful revolution because we're on YouTube, but this channel is entirely peaceful. Trust me. We don't believe in violence at all. I did not spend 12 years in the military, and when I did, I only was kind to people. All right. But there we go.
Yeah, Iron Duke has no training on counter.
I've never shot anyone, guys. Honestly, never.
You've got no counter-insurgency training or insurgency.
I used to fire above their heads and hope they would retreat. I did, honestly. But yeah. All right, guys. We've been going nearly 2.5 hours. AI, would you like to plug your channel?
Yeah, YouTube, William Grenville. You can check out my my YouTube channel there. I'll also promote next what was it? Next year, Nathan Hood is we're for the Pendragon. We are hosting a festival, so keep tuned for that as well. That will be something to watch out. July 27th.
Isn't that the King's Festival or something like that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's gonna. that's something to look out for, and more will be announced.
I just
soon.
think people are going to be confused and think it's got something to do with Charles III, which hopefully it hasn't. But anyway.
Our guest speaker. No, I'm joking. We haven't got the king on board or anything like that. Well, not that I know of, anyway.
Yeah, I can't see it. I've got to say, yeah. I'm not a fan of Charles III. I got to say, I'm not.
We will hold the king, and we will make him sign direct royal prerogatives. And I'm kidding. We're not gonna do anything like that. I'm kidding. Not gonna. I'm not gonna pull the mayor of the palace.
I'm just pointing out Mercy and Anglo's tweets. Sorry, not tweets. His comments in the chat, which I'm putting up on the screen. Good luck to you, Mercy and Anglo. You'll need it, but good luck to you. Get a good lawyer is the one thing I'd say to you.
Are you is that is that the same Mercy, or is this a different Mercy?
No, I think there must be a different Mercy, and I don't think that's our Mercy. But good luck to you, mate. But get a good lawyer. Get a good lawyer is the only good advice someone can give you, because they have changed some of the rules around tweeting and stuff lately. So yeah, get a good solicitor.
Yeah, and maybe avoid avoid Twitter for the meantime, or avoid tweeting spicy stuff for the meantime. But definitely, yeah.
100. Yeah, best of luck, mate. But yeah, get a good solicitor is the first thing. Don't go with the duty solicitor from a cop shop. You know.
Remember, the police aren't your friends. No, they're not your friends.
Not at all.
Say nothing unless your lawyer's there, and only say what your lawyer says is okay. JFC, did you want to plug anything, mate?
Yeah, I've been unbanned from Twitter for the time being. So if you want to see stuff that will possibly make me go to jail, follow me there.
Yeah, well, you be careful too. Yeah. All right. Obviously, join us on Wednesdays. AI, are you going to be available this Wednesday to do part 2 of Captain Cook?
I will be. Yes.
All right. So that's good. That means I can tell you our history stream on Wednesday will be part 2 of Captain Cook. Captain Cook, of course, was the great Royal Navy captain, explorer, and navigator, and who discovered so much about the world. And we did part 1, which basically covered his life up until he goes on his first voyage. So our part 2 will be his first, second, and third voyages until the fucking Hawaiians kill him. Because they were savages, basically. Yes. But whatever.
Yeah. I don't care if you fly a flag with Union Jack in it. I still don't like you. I won't watch Hawaii 5-0, you fuckers. I won't watch it. Fuck you all.
I used to watch Hawaii 5-0 in the 70s, I think it was. When it was Book Him, Dano, and all that stuff. Yeah. I used to watch it then, but only because they used to have hula girls in it and stuff like that. But yeah. All right, guys. So yeah, on Wednesday we'll be doing that. We'll be doing Captain Cook Part 2. One of the greatest Englishmen there's ever been. Although, to be fair, his father was Scottish, but his mother was English. And then we'll be back next week. So yeah, I think that's probably all I can say to all of you. Let me just check our entropy. No, we only got that one $5 donation from Garen. Thank you, Garen. I spend about $200 a month on this channel at the moment, which I can barely afford because I'm semi-retired. So yeah, financial help on this channel, much appreciated, guys. As well as people joining the channel and giving us likes and coming on the streams as well. So yeah,
thanks for having me.
yeah, mate, you're always welcome. Like I said, I'm disappointed because I have quite a number of Australians and Canadians in my Discord, but they hardly ever join the streams. And I'm trying to get Kiwis. I'd love to get a few New Zealanders in my Discord, but pretty hard, to be honest. Someone is confusing things. Oh no, he's talking about Magnum PI. Yeah, did that have anything to do with Hawaii? Can't remember. Maybe it did, Woodpit. I can't remember. But yeah, all right, guys. Thank you very much to my guest, Mitch. Go and join his channel. AI Shiatori, go and join his channel. Jesus Fried Christ, go and check him out on X, on Twitter. And we will see you on Wednesday for our history stream. Go well, and in the meantime, don't let the bastards grind you down.
Cheers.